The dirty deed, duct cleaning? Is that a scam? Stay tuned to find out if it is and what you can do to protect yourself. Duct cleaning. Is it a scam or is there legitimate people out there to do it? Well, if the right people are doing it, let's find out. But before we go into getting ducts cleaned and if it's a scam or not, let's find out. Let's talk a little bit about how it happens. How can a system, an air conditioning system, that's technically supposed to be closed, air goes in the return, goes through the duct that's supposed to be closed, goes into the air handler that's supposed to be closed, goes out the supply ducts that are supposed to be closed, and then it goes out the grills into the room. How does all this dust and dirt get in there? I keep my house perfectly clean. I either clean it myself, or maybe you have the benefit of having someone come and clean it for you. But you spend all that time and energy and effort and chemicals and whatnot to help clean the house to keep it clean. But where does all this stuff come from? Well, let's talk about that. So we have our return grill. So the air goes into our return grill. Now it goes through the return duct. Now, as it goes into that return grill, if there's nothing there to stop any, we're going to use the term particles to include animal dander, dust, pollen, microscopic particle. I mean, just all that. We're just going to use the word particle as a blanket statement to make it easier for the video. So the particles going through the return grill, we have nothing stopping it. Then it gets into the ductwork of the return. Now, as it goes through that ductwork, obviously it's a negative pressure because it's pulling that air in. So here's where we start. If your ductwork for your return has leaks in it, where people didn't tape it up properly, seal it properly, it's got cuts or cracks or whatever the case may be, it's under a negative pressure, so it's going to be pulling in air outside of the air that's going through that grill. Okay, so now it goes through the grill, through the return duct, and then into the air handler or furnace. And there are a lot of different systems out there that don't have return ducts directly connected to the unit, but we're going to use that as an example today. Ductwork has units that have return grills in the room, that ductwork's attached to them, going all the way back to the air handler, through the air handler, and back out through the supply ducts. So the air goes through the return grill, through the return duct, into the air handler. Now, those air handlers, one, have a spot to put a return grill at the bottom. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the air handlers themselves, the factory is required, based on codes, to make sure that that air handler has a less than 2% leak in it from all the little cracks and crevices and doors and everything like that. However, the way most of the HVAC companies install those, your system as a whole is like a sieve. It's got leaks all over it. They pull the doors off. They pull the coil out. If they're putting it in the attic, sometimes some of the air handlers, you can pull them apart in pieces. But they pull that coil out, they take the doors off, and sometimes they'll fold those cabinet sides in to slip it up through the attic because the attic hole's not big enough. Nowadays, it's supposed to be code that the attic access be big enough, but manufacturers are building stuff today and they don't always fit perfectly up there. So when they put these back together, they don't put them back together as well as they were done at the factory. So you take that 2% leak and you turn it into a 5 to 10% leak. So now we have more particles getting into the system. Okay, now it leaves the air handler and goes into the supply duct. Now we have issues with the supply duct. But you're probably thinking to yourself right now, wait a minute. I understand the return. I'm pulling negative pressure in. So I understand I'm going to pull particles in through that. But how am I pulling particles on a supply side, which is pressurized? You're pushing air out. Wouldn't that be pushing in that long snake-like duct system? Wouldn't that be pushing air out? How am I going to get particles in? Well, if a duct system, supply duct system, is not designed properly and installed properly, there are areas of the supply duct system that you can create a vacuum, causing things to be pulled into the duct system. One of the examples at the beginning is I have this long trunk, but then I take a branch and I bring this branch all the way back. In the beginning, as the air is flowing through the system, it's going to be creating a vacuum in that duct because it's rushing this way, pulling air back. Now, after the system pressurizes, it's not as bad, but you are still going to have that effect at some points in time. Also, as air is rushing past an area, maybe a small gap or whatnot, if the system is not properly pressurized and designed, you can also create a vacuum at that little hole. So the supply duct can and will create negative or vacuum pressures within certain points that will cause. That's why your supply duct system, part of the reason it's so nasty is because of that. And then the air goes out the branch duct into the rooms. So we have the whole flow, and we understand all the different places that air and dirt and dust or particles can get into the system. So let's talk about things that you can do before we go and talk about this duct cleaning issue. Things that you could do to help minimize, or in some cases, you might almost be able to negate altogether, depending on your building and your location and how the house is used and whatnot. So as the air goes through that return grill, remember we have return grills in all the rooms. Great place, put a filter right there. That's going to help stop some of them. Now, we did another video on air filters, and we also did a podcast. If you go to procalcsuniversity.com, you'll be able to listen to the podcast we did back in December. I think we also did a YouTube video on filters and whatnot. That you want to go and watch that and listen to it because it's going to talk about some of the issues that you can have by having too efficient of a filter if your system is not properly designed. So go back and watch that or listen to that podcast. So air comes in the return grill. We have a filter back return grill that allows us to put a filter there to help stop some of those particles. Okay. The better the filter, the smaller the particles, the greater the percentage you'll be able to capture. Okay, so now we capture some. Now it goes into the duct system. We still got holes and leaks in the return duct. What happens? This is where you need to find a company that will do duct leakage testing and also seal the ducts. So what they do is they come with this machine, they pressurize the ductwork. Now, the way I used to do it, I'm not sure if they do it now, I haven't been out there with them lately, is we used to introduce harmless smoke as the system was being pressurized. And what would happen is somebody would go up in the attic and they would look and see the smoke coming from the little cracks and crevices. They would run over there, they would mask and seal it up, then they would go to the next one. So that's important because that makes it easy for you to find and seal the leaks. Are you going to seal them up 100% perfect? No. There's always going to be something, even a little tiny one that maybe even the smoke doesn't go through. But they could be there. All right, so now we've stopped the air coming through the filter. We stopped a lot of the particles. We sealed the return duct up, so we stopped some of the particles there. Now we get to the air handler. The air handler has the ability in it to have another filter, but be careful. Another filter there again, even if you have a great filter at the return grill and you want to put another great filter, you could end up creating so much restriction that you could damage your system. So do your best to make sure that the system is designed properly where it will allow you to have greater restrictions because of filtration and still run it. All right, so the air goes through the return duct, it hits this next filter. So we stopped it at the grill, we stopped it at the duct, we stopped it at the air handler. We're not stopped, but we've reduced it. Now we get to the air handler. Now this is something that anybody can do. Homeowners, anybody. Let's say the air handler is in the garage, okay? And you've had a return duct that comes down into it. And it's in the garage, so it's sitting on a wooden platform or metal platform. And what you can do is make sure that you caulk and seal around the base of that so that as the air handler is set, that there's no gaps around the bottom. Now that should be done when they install it, but sometimes from shifting and whatnot, it can crack, it can break, or maybe they're just a bad company and they didn't do it to begin with. I've seen that a million times. Well, maybe not a million, maybe like 10,223. So now you have the air handler. So they pulled the doors off, they put it back together in pieces, and maybe they didn't seal it up. Now, a lot of companies are doing this more than before, but you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's and they have this metal tape. It's metal on one side, sticky on the other side. You peel off the white backing and you can put it right on the air handler. And they come with little squeegees. So as you squeegee and put a little bit of pressure on that, you actually activate the heat, the glue behind it, and make it stick even better and actually help to form fit it to the area. So any crack and crevice, any opening, anything, you're going to put that tape on to help seal so that the air cannot get into that air handler. Now, some manufacturers, especially Train, make an air handler. There's the Train's is called Hyperion, but they make an air handler where the blower wheel, the parts that's creating the air, is at the bottom of the unit. And what that does is that allows the unit, the air handler or furnace, to be positively pressurized. So it's pushing air out of the air handler instead of pulling air in. And because the air handler is rectangular, vertical, and shot, it's not a snaky duct system. We're not worried about, like I was talking about on the supply side, creating those vacuums and whatnot. So you're going to positively pressurize that and push it up. So that also can help reduce the amount of particles that's getting into the air handler and into your system. Now, you have a coil in there. That coil, it's not supposed to, but it also kind of can act like a filter. You don't want it to act like a filter, but it will. And that's why a lot of times when you're doing maintenance and whatnot on your air conditioning system, they'll come out and let you know that that coil is just clogged solid with junk. Well, that's because all those other things before it weren't in place or weren't being effective. So all the dust and dirt and stuff came to the coil. We don't want that coil to be a filter, okay? But it's there and it will act like a filter if it's allowed to, but we don't want that. So now the air goes into the supply duct. Well, we get into the supply duct. We talked about the issues on the supply duct. But if the duct testing and leakage company comes out and they've sealed the supply duct up properly, we should be able to completely almost eliminate the potential issues of creating vacuums and negative pressure and allowing particles to enter into the supply airstream as well. So if we've done all of those things properly, and as the air continues to circulate through the system, we will be able to trap more and more particles. And this is also another good reason, if you have that, where a variable speed or inverter style system compressor that runs at a lower capacity but runs a little longer also helps with filtration in the home because you're circulating that air through again and again, and you're trapping it through those filters again and again, helping to keep the home that much more particle free. But there are still going to be some particles and there are still going to be things and little holes. And that's where duct cleaning can be a good thing if it's done by the right people. Let's take a look at some situations with dirty ducts. So right here we have a fiberglass duct board system that, as you can tell, it's pretty dirty. And that's mold. That's nasty mold that's grown into the system because when you have a dark, cool place and you You put dust particles and whatnot, bacteria and all those things, they're going to start growing within that area. Let's show you another one with flexible duct. So here's two flex ducts. You can see the one on my right is a lot dirtier than the one on the left, but that's flex duct. Now, that flex duct, that lining in the right direction can be very easy to tear through. So when I say finding the right company, make sure that you're finding a company that's going to clean that properly, because some companies use a device that's got a brush on the end of it with a wire, a wire that goes through, not a wire, but a cable that goes through. The brush is on the end of it and it spins around. But think about it. If I have something that's not that sturdy and that material, that vinyl material can rip fairly easy in the right direction, and they start shoving that thing through there, they're going to just destroy the flex duct. So my recommendation experience is try to avoid a company that's going to only use a brushing system, even with flex duct, unless they can guarantee when they are done to look at everything, and if anything is ripped or broken, that they're going to replace it at no charge. Okay? And that device that I'm talking about is something like this. This is called Rotor Brush. It's a good product, and this hose is a vacuum, and these are the brushes that go up in there, that would go up inside the duct, and they would spin around, and you can typically adjust the RPMs so they spin around. It's like they're brushing the inside, and then the vacuum is vacuuming it out. So this is a more of a primitive. There's ones that are much higher end, but this is the concept that I'm referring to. So finding the right company is key. First, when you're looking for a company online, somebody who's offering a $59, just pass them right by. Okay? Look for somebody who's got lots of good reviews on Google. The more reviews, the better. If you find a company that's got 1, 2, 3, this is something that my wife is big about. We won't go anywhere or we won't do anything if we go onto a website and we look at a company and they're on Google and they have horrible ratings, 3.2, 3. She'll just say no. Well, because people have spoken. But also we like to go in and type the name of the company and put the word review after it. And you'll also find a lot of other things about those companies. So you want to have that happen. Now, I recommend bringing at least 3 companies out to the house. Don't say anything to any of them. Just say, I need to look to see if I have to have my ducts cleaned. Now, they might ask you, what makes you think that? Oh, I have some dust and particles in the house. But let them come out. Don't tell one company what the other company said. Let them come to you. That is also going to help you determine who is a phony and who is a professional. The other thing I recommend is, regardless of how excited you are about one company, never select one of those companies at the time that they're pitching you. One, your emotions are going. And we don't want to make an emotional decision when it comes to this. I know it's not a lot of money, but we don't want to make an emotional decision. We want them all to leave. We want to think to ourselves, who did we think was the best one? And we want to do another research on them based on what that person told us, based on their estimate, based on what's listed, looking at the fine print and making sure that they're not coming out going, well, we're only going to charge you. Well, no, our $59 price is only based on 5 ducts. So you got 15. Well, it's going to be more money. And our price is only based on, we don't clean the grill, so that's going to be more money. And we don't do this, and that's good. Well, now when you're said and done, it's like $200, $300, $400. And well, they're already there, they're already set up, and you're like, just go ahead and do it. That's a scam company. Those are the companies that you got to watch out for. And there's a lot of them out there. And on top of that, most of those companies have no clue what they're doing. They're preying on the weak, on the people that don't know any better. And that's what we're talking about today, is to help give you that little bit of education to help you understand how to stop those people from scamming you. So checking the Google reviews, doing your reviews, letting them come out. Also, another thing that I wouldn't go with a company who didn't have a camera and wasn't willing to walk around with you and show you all the issues you have in your system. Okay, and if they're going to clean it, the ones that are going to be able to come out and also clean because you clean the ductwork and everything, but the air handler's still dirty, you're still going to end up blowing all that stuff from the air handler back in, and it's sitting in there. So you also want to make sure that they're able to clean the coil off, they're able to pull the blower out. Now, I don't know if duct cleaning companies do all that, but look to find one that can be able to pull that blower out and clean that blower off, pull the coil out maybe, or clean the coil as it sits. If they can't pull the coil out because it's attached to the refrigeration line, so are they able to clean it in place? If it's dirty, they may be. If there's a lot of times that the coil is not so bad that they can't just clean it in place with the special tools and devices, and that's possible. But if it has to be pulled, that most likely will have to be done by a licensed air conditioning company. Unless this company is licensed air conditioning and duct cleaning, then they'll do both. But the whole system needs to be cleaned, not just the grills, not just the cans, not just the duct, but the entire system needs to be cleaned. So make sure that that's what they're offering for you. And yes, it's going to cost a little bit more, but it's going to be done right. What kind of guarantees? Read the fine print. What kind of guarantees are they going to give you? Are they just going to clean your ducts, take your money, and go on? Well, that might be not to be the right company for you. So make sure you protect yourself with those things. And hey, if you like the information that we're talking about today, don't forget to smash that like button. Go ahead and click subscribe on there. We're coming out with new videos just about every week to help you. And if you have a topic that you want us to talk about, put it in the comments down below. Let us know the different things that you want to talk about. If we need to get some guests on here to talk about things that maybe we're not perfect experts at, hey, put it in the comments and we'd be happy to see what we can do. We're going to be talking about a lot of great things. We're going to have series coming up on how load calcs are done. And something else that we're going to be bringing to you is, and Google this, there is a new type of duct system out there. Now, when we're talking today about cleaning your ducts and we talk about sealing the ducts, this duct system, if it's installed properly, the ducts themselves are virtually leak-free. And they're also only designed to be in the house, in conditioned space, not in dirty attics or other places. The name of this product is called RHEIA, RHEIA. So if you go to RHEIA, Google it, and you'll find their website. It's impressive. We're using RHEIA and designing it. A lot of big builders now. So it's going to become probably one of the greatest new introductions into the HVAC industry in a long time. We love designing it. It's a little bit different concept than most air conditioning systems, but it works amazing. It's a great product, and it's going to help with what we're talking about today with duct cleaning. Of course, I got to see how somebody's going to duct clean it because the ducts are only 3 to 4 inches, but it's possible to make it happen. It's a lot more sturdier than Flex. It's got a lot of great qualities to it. So do some research on it. And if you're going to be building a new home, find out if the builder that you're using possibly has that RHEIA. And I'm not being paid to promote RHEIA. We just use it, and I think it's a great product. But we'll be having them on here as well sometime and talking about their product and different things of that nature. So I hope everybody's having a great 2023. Have a blessed day. And don't forget, smash that like button if you like what we talked about today. And we'll talk to you soon.